Alright boys, here we go. Cherokee National Enduro in Greensboro, Georgia. This was supposed to be round 5, but our Virginia race got canceled, so this is round 4. So, there's been a couple other videos that have come out and everybody's talking about the weather. We got there Friday night, it was nice. We are actually pretty optimistic about the weather. Then it started raining on Saturday, sometime around, in the morning, 11 or noon. And then it rained all day on Saturday into Sunday, and then rained off and on pretty hard most of the day Sunday before the race. That resulted in what everybody calls Georgia house knot, kind of mud, and it was some of the slickest conditions I've ever ridden in. The mud there was plenty of grip when you could get it, but in some places you would just start sliding, and it was really rough in some of the really tight dark sections. And this race for me wasn't about like speed. This was more about just maintaining, staying up, and keeping moving forward all the time, trying not to lose a bunch of speed, because I honestly don't have any. I don't ride in the mud very much. I don't go out and seek out the mud, which I guess I need to get to learn how to do it. But it really shows that I don't have the ability here to ride this stuff well, because I struggled most of the day. This course was well laid out. Tests 1 through 4 were really good. They were slick, like I said, but there was a good rut that got developed. We were road 25, so it wasn't too beat up by the time we got to it. It was a good course for the conditions, really. Test 5 is really the shit really hit the fan. So there were these bridges across some of these water crossings, and you could watch my front wheel just slides out there. I was not under any power. I was just hitting the bridge. So that guy who was bike upside down had slid off and gotten stuck, and luckily he didn't go into the creek. I heard another, I think it was Mackenzie Trekker, was saying that she actually saw somebody down in the creek was dragging their bike out. So whoever it was okay, but you'd be real careful around those bridges on getting pushed off, because they were just covered in this super slick clay and water, and you would hit them and it was like being on ice. You saw how dark that last section was. You get into the thick woods and there's so much cloud cover that it was just a complete blackout almost, and I had just regular goggles on. I had a set of the 100% forecasts, and they were the roll-off style. They're supposed to be good for that kind of weather, and I had to take them off because it was so dark. It was like I was wearing tinted goggles. This is the start of test 2. You can see it in the video. It's really kind of deceiving about how good it looks. It looks incredible on the video, but I'm telling you, it was just slick everywhere. And you get into this rut, and it would push you wide, or you'd slide around. And I couldn't brake effectively all the time. I did maintain my speed. I kept a good pace for myself. I ended up in 2nd in 30B, which is my best finish yet in the 30B class, and my best NEPG finish yet. I honestly didn't feel bad the whole race. I didn't feel like I was really just blowing it the whole time, but I did really feel like I hit my stride in test 4, which was probably the fastest, widest test of all of them in this race. Oh, this is one of the connectors. So you can see it's just pouring rain, and we're on a 10-mile road connector between tests. I think this was between test 3 and 4. Or it was either 3 and 4 or 4 and 5. This is test 3. My GoPro actually it was so humid out from the rain coming on and off, and it was in the 80s. My GoPro fogged up, so that's what all that misting is on the camera lens. This is the same course layout as last year, except they cut away one of the farther tests where we had. Last year there was like a 15-mile connector where you were just on the road for 15 miles. This year the longest they had 2 10-mile connectors, and it was 2 of the test and then back to camp. But the trails that we were on were essentially the same trails that they were on last year, which was kind of nice because I have a good trail memory. So once I get into it, I can kind of remember what to expect in certain sections, which may have helped my performance. This test, I felt like I started to get into my groove. I started understanding what my bike was going to do. I could really not push, but I could maintain a good steady pace and a good effort. Later on, man, there was a test 5, and it was this clear-cut Well, all right. So first, between test 4 and 5, there was the longest gas stop. It was about 45 minutes, and it rained hard the whole time. So when we took off for test 5, there was just water in the trail. It was like a creek. And so after you get out of that part where you're riding through the creek, you end up in this clear cut section that has done nothing but soak up 2.5 days worth of water, and it just turned into pure peanut butter. And there were G-outs where it was super like peg deep or deeper, and you really just had to hammer through them to try and get around. It was probably the hardest I've fought my bike trying to keep the thing up, and I hit the ground 6 or 7 times probably, just sliding around in the woods because there's no traction. You just had to hope the back end wouldn't come around to the front, and I'm really envious of the people that are able to ride this stuff well. And I say that I'm not going to go out and seek this shit out to go and ride it. I'll ride it when I have to, but I'm not going out on a day where it's just pouring the rain to try and figure out how to ride the slick stuff. I'm not that motivated. Overall, like I said, it was a really good race. It was Georgia's always fun. We did it last year and it was hot, but it was different than this race. And it wasn't dusty and hot, it was just hot. And so it was a different beast than it was this year, and I was in not as good a shape and wasn't as prepared. But now this year, having everything set up and understanding what I'm getting into, I'm really not killing myself doing these enduros. I know what to plan for, I know what to eat, I know how to hydrate, all that good stuff. And that was really important during this race because you were really fatiguing yourself just fighting your bike the whole time. This is another one of those weird dark sections. My goggles came off every time. I don't know where we'd be, somewhere in the middle of the test, and I'd just yank my goggles off. I think in this test my goggles came off really early, and it was because either they'd get water underneath the tear-offs and you couldn't see anything, or it was so dark you couldn't see, or just something. But as dangerous as it was, it made more sense for me to pull them off because if I can't see, I can't ride. And there's some people who don't need full visibility to ride. They can just kind of hope and pray to commit to some stuff that I won't commit to unless I can see. And I've taken some serious branches to the eyes. I've had a big blister, big bruise in my eye one time from getting a rock in it. I understand the risk. It's just if I'm trying to actually be competitive, I got to be able to see. And so I've by test 5, I was wearing my mesh goggles that we had made them for Sumter 2 years ago, and I just never actually wore them until this race, and they worked really well. Another one of those bridges, you can see my front wheel just slide right as I hit it. I talked to one of I think he was a AA guy. He said when you're hitting these bridges, he's like, you can't go fast over them. You just gotta, accelerate to the bridge, hit it as straight as you can, and coast across it, and then get back on the power when you get across the bridge. Because trying to accelerate on that wet, muddy wood is just not going to do anything good for you. You're just going to end up spinning, sliding, and there's no saving it once it starts to go. These faster, wider sections a little bit later in the test really did some good for me. It gave me a good feel for what the bike was doing, and I gotta say that having my bike set up well now is really, I can see the difference. I've moved up from being way back in the pack in the 30 beat class to now I'm up in now I'm in top 4 at Louisiana and top 2 in this race. Hopefully I can keep this trend going and keep pushing, because it was really gratifying to see that the work I'm doing and improvements I feel like I'm making as a rider are really visible in my results. This kind of riding, this enduro style, is probably my favorite race organization style or race layout style. It suits me, and I like the sprint to get through a section, you sprint to get through another section, and you get a little break. And some people say it's not really as hard. I guarantee you, it's as hard as any other kind of racing, except for maybe hard enduro, because you're on the bike for such a long time every day. This is the end of test 4 where it started raining. We're in this gully. This is the same thing that happened last year, but it just started to deteriorate because of all the water. I can't imagine being farther back than we were. I was on row 25, and it was hard. So, I think if you were past row 40, it was crazy. And then we had a friend, Peter, who ended up, and he didn't sign up till the day of and was row 99. And he said it was just insanely difficult, which I can believe. It was hard this early in the race. I can only imagine that far back. Like I said, overall, had a great time. Course layout was good. You know, it was great hanging out with all the buddies that we go down and race with. You know, meet new people. We had a guy come down who was local to the Atlanta area. He ran Chase for us, which was really clutch for having somebody to be able to, you know, get us our stuff we needed, carry goggles and gloves, all that good stuff. Round 6 is in Pennsylvania. That's the next one. I'm getting ready for that. Sign-ups are sometime next week. I'm pumped. I like this series a lot. Keep following it. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. See you next time. Peace.